YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. After Conference Championship Sunday, Super Bowl matchup is set between the Bengals and the Rams. I'm here to recap, give you my thoughts, key thoughts on the AFC and NFC Championship games. Rams-Niners just got finished with just moments ago, so we'll start with that one here. We'll get through both games. Follow our Twitter, constant updates during games. You guys be voting for Super Bowl picks. A lot going on there. NFL news, rumors, everything. Link down below, pinned in the comments for a lot of useful things, recent videos, and more there. Check it out. But yeah, the game, we'll just go with the latest game, the game that's just fresh in our minds right now that just finished. Pretty much a defensive game. It's a weird game. This is a very weird game because neither team really played their game fully. I feel like it was odd, like an odd title game. Because neither team was their full strength. Neither team looked like that team that made it here. Maybe defensively, here and there. It was an execution problem in this game too. And I actually thought more so towards the Rams. The first half, the Rams just were not executed. Even the second half, and the same thing happened for the Niners too. But at the end of the first half, I'm saying to myself, how are the Niners winning this game? How are the Rams losing this game? Actually, what I was saying, they move the ball fairly well. I mean, the first drive, Stafford misses a wide open OBJ. Garoppolo missed a wide open, I believe it was Kittle on their first drive as well. The Rams march down the field, get near the goal line. Stafford throws an interception, tried to force it to Kupp, was behind him. Good play by Ward. Tight coverage by the 49ers, per usual. Then we have a rare big-time drop by Cooper Kupp that could have been a touchdown, would have probably set them up for a touchdown. Then Skoranek has a brutal drop. Brutal drop there, and we got a missed field goal, and then the Rams are getting down in the 49ers territory. This was early second half, just moving the ball with ease again. Can't convert from third and inches to fourth and inches. Can't convert. I mean, credit to the Niners defense there, but just a lot of lack of execution moments for the Rams and not what we're really used to. And then even on defense, the not executing, getting Jimmy Garoppolo, not getting after him, not getting him down when you had the opportunity, dropping interceptions throughout the whole game for the Rams, or keeping your head down so you don't pick the ball off. 49ers had a big dropped interception, so that was a lack of execution moment there for them where they kind of shot themselves in the foot. It's a really bad decision and throw by Matthew Stafford. And Jaquiski Tartt, just some bad hands there. Just can't come up with that. That could have decided the game. A bad turnover for Garoppolo at the end, trying to make something happen there. A bad decision, I should say, on that one. But yeah, so a sloppy game. These teams weren't really themselves. It was more so the Rams just weren't. I mean, there's times throughout the year where they didn't execute. There was times where Stafford was a little sloppy with the ball, but this was just in every phase. You look at McVay too. Some questionable play calling, not too much of it, but the challenges and taking a bit to get the play in. So I think just on all phases, just lack of execution for the Rams, which we're not used to. 49ers, they weren't themselves because they couldn't really run the ball. And we talked about this, kind of the flaw. I mean, Niners been playing great, hell of a run, especially with beat up at quarterback, etc. But we talked about it probably in playoff power rankings, in other videos where what's stopping them and, maybe why I can't rank them at the top of the teams still left is because they're relying on the run a little bit too much, and that did kind of show up. There's a limit to where you can get to, and they had this one, but there's kind of a limit that you can get to when you're really lacking in an area or relying on something, and they rely on the run. They only rushed for 50 yards. Maybe they could have ran the ball a little bit more. Maybe they could have got Debo the ball. Maybe some more pitches outside a little bit more. Elijah Mitchell did seem like he was running tough. 2.5 yards per carry. Just not Niners football. Credit to the Rams stopping a run. I just don't know what's going wrong there. I do think, they found a weakness in the Rams defense, the linebacker position, and I think they were attacking that, kind of some shallow crosses, and it was kind of working here and there. Maybe, and it's not really a big problem, it's not really what lost them the game. Maybe they were just too focused on that game plan, exposing that weakness where they kind of went away from their game. But it's not like they fully went away from their game because the Rams kind of just stopped the run. So that's the big piece that probably won't be talked about. The Rams stopped the run here, and that was big. I always talk about it. If you can have a really good team. I think the Chargers are a pretty good example. You can have a pretty good team, pretty explosive offense. Just one of many examples. This year we'll use that as an example. But if you just can't stop the run, you cannot win anything big. You can't win anything big. That's the first thing. It's not the most important thing technically in football. But if you cannot stop the run, you cannot win football games. And when you can stop the run at a pretty high level, take it a step up there, you can get to a championship. You can get to a Super Bowl, get to that stage. I think the Rams showed that today. 49ers stopped the run as well. So credit to both defenses, clutching up the short yardage. Again, the Rams were able to work the field, got in short yardage situations, didn't really know what to do. 49ers kind of stopped them there. There was a couple. Yeah, I mean, even though the 49ers defense played a good game, there was a couple moments where it felt like they had the Rams stopped, and then I guess the 2 Cooper Kupp touchdowns, there was a couple reps in cover, too, from the 49ers that the Rams just read. And kind of hit that hole shot. There was one to OBJ kind of late in the game. There was a touchdown to Cooper Kupp. So questionable calls to being. I mean, they mixed it up though. They mixed it up. If Rams just did a really good job reading that. Stafford was, he was Stafford in this game. He's a little sloppy. Starts the game getting, missing a throw, getting down near the goal line, throwing interception, but then hitting some throws. If caught, that one to Tart was pretty bad. But. Again, reading coverages, hitting the throws when he needs to, but that throw to on the drive that ultimately got them the lead, the Rams, when they got that field goal, it was a huge third down. He hit Cooper Kupp on a slant. It was tightly covered. I mean, that was a perfect ball. You got to have the balls to throw that ball, and that ball has got to be perfect, not just accuracy perfect, velocity perfect, and it was. So that was the play of the game. That was a clutch play. For them, pretty wild. That man, yeah. This game it's a weird game. Like I talked about, both teams not really on their game. Again, credit to the defenses, but it felt like it was on themselves a little bit too. But and another reason why it was a little odd is just not a lot of pass rush. Expected a little bit more, and definitely more out of the Rams from this game. Getting pressure throughout the game on Jimmy Garoppolo. There was a point where they had 0 sacks. They finished the game with 0 sacks because technically Garoppolo got rid of the ball. I got to check the stats here. Did they finish the game? I want to see the total sacks. Yeah. Garoppolo was not sacked once. Stafford was sacked twice. So, yeah, that's pretty wild. So I would have guessed the Rams would not have sacked Garoppolo, and then I would have predicted, and then the Rams have definitely. I mean, they ended up getting a turnover in a crucial spot at the end. We'll talk about the pass rush at the end as well, but yeah, I don't know. It was just wild. That long without, and they never ended up with a sack, but without getting a turnover as well, with that many sloppy plays in the 49ers offense, or Garoppolo putting the ball in harm's way. It was pretty unpredictable how that game went down. I'm thinking of it, but again, the Rams pass rush quiet. That was surprising. They showed up at a great time. The Rams crowd showed up at a great time too. The last 2 drives for the 49ers on offense, series for the 49ers offense, was huge. A little bit messy. They couldn't get the play in. The offensive line the timing of getting off the ball wasn't right, and that resulted in a better chance to get pass rush. Von Miller, Aaron Donald, these guys blowing things up there. The last 2 drives, especially the last one, constantly getting pressure. I think the first play of the last drive for the 49ers, Von Miller had an inside rush, and he got there pretty quick. So that was huge. Showed up at the right time there, and it was just the noise was definitely a factor. They had a hard time making adjustments to the line and kind of having everyone on the same page with the timing of the snap. That was a big problem. So the Rams crowd showed up, and it was weird because all week we just heard it's going to be a 49ers home game. I hate that talk. I hear that talk a lot from different fan bases throughout the year. I just feel like it never goes well. It's something I noticed. So and the Rams crowds end up showing up big there. So again, weird game again, because these teams didn't really feel like themselves fully. I guess that happens, but yeah, it's kind of rare to see that though. That at that extent, in an NFC Championship game. So Rams clutch up in the end. It felt like they may have been done at one point, forcing a punt. towards the end of the game was crucial too. It was a 4th and 2. The 49ers lined up to go for it to try to get them to jump off sides. They ended up punting. That was a crucial stop. There was just little things within this game. Little things. The biggest little thing was that slant, that bullet throw by Stafford hits it perfect. The Niners had this one. They had this one. They had the Rams playing very sloppy, and not able to execute as much as they normally do. And they couldn't do it. I think there's the lack of being able to play their own game. I kept waiting, like, where's this 49ers drive? That drive that just pound the ball down their throats, punch them in the mouth, run 7 minutes of clock off, and win the game, basically. Like that drive, it doesn't have to be at the end of the game. It doesn't have to be. It could be, and it could be a 49ers drive. But that drive could be in the second quarter, and that could be like a dagger-type drive, like one of those 49ers drive. I just waiting for it. They scored points, but they never had they never had that game. It didn't really feel like 49er football, and they still almost had it, And again, it didn't really feel like full Ram football, and they still won it. So, pretty wild game. Credit to Raheem Morris mixing it up there at the end defensively. Adjustments I thought were made. Again, a little bit of sloppy game, but the Rams make it to the Super Bowl. They'll play the Bengals, where if they play that sloppy, the clutch Bengals will execute in the second half and beat them. So that's not the good thing. The good thing for the Rams is they do have a mismatch in their favor with their defensive line versus the Bengals' offensive line. So that's something as well. We'll talk about that first game here. And everyone's going to want to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo probably. What will happen this offseason. It's probably, that's a tough decision for the 49ers. Maybe ask him to take a pay cut. I could see him taking it. We'll see. 1 year left on his contract. Pretty big cap hit. But on to this game. The comeback kids of Cincinnati pull it off again. They did it in Week 17 against the Chiefs. That was a whole different stage, a whole different game, and they pull it off again here in the AFC Championship game. The way this game started just kind of felt different, though. It felt like the Chiefs adjusted properly. Maybe took some things out of the Titans' book from last week here. And the Bengals just couldn't get much going. Burrow didn't have time, and looked like they didn't have much interest in getting the ball downfield, even though they kind of couldn't. And the Chiefs were moving the ball pretty damn easy, running some clock. And I think things started here with the end of the first half. I talked about you look at the end of the first half, the Chiefs had no focus on the clock, like no awareness of the clock. And I don't know if that's a mixture of the coaching staff and not taking the field goal with Mahomes, throwing that screen pass. I think he trusted Hill's speed. I think, if Tyreek Hill doesn't have that speed, he probably doesn't throw that ball, so he trusted him too much there. But they end up with 0 points. That field goal, obviously look at the score, and went to overtime. That could have been big. But you go from at the end of the first half, no awareness of the clock, like forget the clock, to the end of the second half where there's too much focus on the clock. The clock should have been maybe the number one. I'm more of a just go get a damn touchdown, should be the number one focus guy, but I understand it. Like the clock could be priority number one, but there's a point where there's too much. Like it shouldn't be the only one in the priority list, and that's kind of what the case was. And some mistakes by Mahomes there. Man, as good as he's been in the playoffs and the beginning of this game, like you're starting to feel okay. Mahomes, crunch time. This is the best guy in football. This is the best player in football. He's showing it again. He's proven us what. He's reminding us, but it's still very well could be valid. It still very well could be the case. I mean, a phenomenal player. At the end of the day, could be maybe the very, very best in this league. But he was pretty sloppy at the end there. It was a little surprising. He almost blew the game. They almost didn't go to overtime, just holding the ball way too long and fumbling that ball. And then they end up getting that clutch field goal there. But that was just a whole mess there. That just wasn't Chiefs football. It wasn't Chiefs football. But the story of this game to me, and the Bengals had players clutch up. Burrow clutched up under pressure, scrambled, used his legs, to gain yards and then throw the ball to gain yards. And players stepped up. Coverage, they got coverage sacks. Hubbard and Hendrickson, they were starting to get after Mahomes. while only rushing a few guys. It was kind of on their back. It made sense. B.J. Hill made maybe the play of the game. That was a ridiculous play. Mahomes has only been picked off. At that point, was only his second time being picked off in the playoffs. Pretty wild. They end up getting another pick, and B.J. Hill makes that ridiculous play. It's absolutely ridiculous. So players stepped up. Where I'm going with this, though, I mean, the Bengals coaching staff, an all-star performance this year in this game, massive part of why they're going to the Super Bowl. It's ridiculous. The adjustments, why they're so good in the second half, why they're so good in the third quarter, the adjustments. Zach Taylor, Lou Anarumo, their defensive coordinator. I mean, mainly on the defensive. I mean, this defense has been so good and just unpredictable. They just mix it up. They start this game with some blitzes at Mahomes, even though it's not really ideal, but there's a strategy behind it. Man coverage. They mixed it up early because that's Bengals defense. You see these teams. And a lot of these teams just run the same thing most of the game. It becomes predictable. And that's why the Bengals been so good. They mix it up, and they were mixing up early, but they were kind of showing similar looks. And you get into the second half, and you just don't know what they're in. The great quarterbacks line up, and they try to predict what coverage they're in, and usually they're successful. And if you make it harder on them, you're making it harder on them. So they did such a good job mixing it up. They started rushing less and less guys as the game went on, dropping more back in coverage, and and that was the plan the whole game. I can guarantee you that. It's tough to say. I guess it's tough to guarantee unless you're in there, but going in this game, they want to do that because to beat this passing offense with this much speed, a guy that just beats pressure, Mahomes, he beats pressure like old-fashioned pressure or blitz pressure. He's got the awareness. He avoids it. He can throw on the run. He can run. You want to have that many guys in coverage. You want to 8+ in coverage a lot towards the end of this game. So that's definitely the game plan. But most coaches go, all right, let's just do that because that's the best thing to do. Let's just do it the whole game. And no, the Bengals come out and they have a strategy. They start without those looks. They give these different looks, make their halftime adjustments tough. Like, what are the adjustments? This is what they're doing. Let's continue to roll against this. So that is it doesn't sound like it's genius, but for some reason it's a problem across the NFL. Of course, you have to have the players to be able to do it, but it's crazy because, like I said, they were rushing more and they weren't able to get Mahomes, and then they were rushing less and they were actually getting them. It's because of coverage. They were getting coverage sacks, and he's not really expecting to get pressure because he understands at that point. He's not expecting to get pressured that much because he understands at that point that everyone's really back in coverage. So, it's just a genius called game from this coaching staff. Even offensively, they didn't really get much going offensively. I like the way they mixed the runs and the underneath plays, the running backs together with the passing plays. They mixed it up. They kept that unpredictable. This is what I've been saying for years and years, and it's obvious. It's not like my thing, but it's just be unpredictable. You have to be unpredictable. It's a major problem in the NFL. The teams that are predictable do not make it. They do not make it. And in teams, teams have been using offensive line as an excuse. The Bengals don't have an offensive line, but they got the talent around it. They got the coaching staff, and they're unpredictable, and they get there, That's just the story of the Bengals here. Again, players stepped up. They got good players. They stepped up. I love this defense. I love Joe Burrow, these weapons, but the coaching staff adjusting. But, going back to the offense, though, they try to go downfield, but at one point, but there's just no time for Burrow. And the Chiefs are so worried about that because of last time. That's what the Bengals do. A lot of two-man under looks, which the corner just stays on the outside receiver, and the safety will help him over the top. So it's almost like a double team if you play it a certain way, the way the Chiefs were. It could be a double team on the sidelines. So you should start to go towards the middle of the field if they're doing that. And then I think the breaking point there to get a little bit of offense going was the Bengals were starting to get in the Chiefs' territory, but they did it a few times. They would have these big plays, seemed like the T. Higgins a lot, and then they kind of would shut down, or Joe Mixon, to get down there. But they get down there, it's like, all right, can they execute this time? And they run a comeback inside the numbers, well inside the numbers to Jamar Chase, and that was a breaking point, I think, offensively. And they didn't go wild anything like that offensively, but and that opened a little bit up there. because there's got two guys worried about the deep on the sideline, and then you just make a play over the middle of the field. And that did kind of open. They were getting things going over the middle of the field with Higgins previously too, so that could have possibly been it too. But it's just pretty smart and just mixing up the play calling, just nothing predictable. I couldn't sit there and say, all right, they're running here. Oh, okay, they're passing. Besides the blatant obvious where you have to pass the ball. Besides that, where everyone would run a pass, you know what I mean. So it's just a great job, mainly defensively for the Bengals. The players stepping up and how well coached it was. I mean, the Chiefs started off on fire. I just really, we saw it happen in Week 17, but I really can't believe they let it happen this time around. Again, the end of the first half was a killer. Only having the clock on the priority list, it's why it's pretty contradicting too, because the clock was out the window on the end of the first half. The clock was the only thing in the window at the end of the second half. So it's just wild that they just really couldn't get things going. They had McKinnon going early. Surprised they didn't kind of go back to him. Watching the game as it went, there was nothing else like, yeah, it's a bad play call, or what are they doing there? It was nothing really like that. Besides what are they doing at the end of the first half? But I guess now you look at it, I guess they could have done this, that. What happened? It's wild. So and then they force overtime. They still, even though they kind of choked a touchdown away and they tried to choke the game away or overtime away, they still clutched up, went to overtime. The Chiefs, that is, and they win the toss and get the ball first. I know there's gonna be a meltdown league wide if the Chiefs, won the toss and scored right away, and it was an opportunity to do it, but you got to play good defense. Again, the Bills couldn't do it last week. The Bengals did it this week. The Bengals clutched up, and they got the stop. They drop an interception, and they get an interception, and they put together a really good drive. It's just, Mahomes surprisingly played a little sloppy at the end there, and it was a wild game, wild comeback, a hell of a stage to do it. Bengals are clutch. They're clutch. They got some stud players, some takeover type impact players. Pretty balanced team. Just missing offensive line. Like, they got the quarterback, that's for sure. They got the running back. I mean, the second running back, P. Ryan, even stepped up. They got the receivers, that's for sure as well. They could stop the run. They can get after the quarterback. They got tight coverage guys in the secondary. I mean, Jesse Bates all over. Jesse Bates, he played like the best safety in football last year. This year in regular season, not so much. He was solid. He was solid, but it's like, where was that potential elite guy? The playoffs, man. Oh my God, he's incredible in the playoffs. He made himself some big time money because he's an upcoming free agent here. Potentially made himself some big time money. And I mean, they got these ball players. They got these ball players everywhere. But the coaches know how to coach. They know how to adjust. That's a big thing here with the Bengals. So we get the Bengals and the Rams. The Bengals are a little more consistent than the Rams. I definitely say that. They're clutch. Both teams clutched up. Bengals are very clutch. They're very good at adjustments. They're very good in specifically the third quarter, the second half. They're pretty safe with the ball. The Rams can be sloppy. The Bengals will execute over them and take over if the Rams are sloppy. But the Rams are very, very talented. They kind of have every level as well of the game. High-powered passing attack. It's pretty similar, that passing attack. There'll be different concepts, but they spread the field out a lot. Like, how do we account for all these weapons in the downfield passing game? So pretty similar there. The Rams are extremely talented and have kind of that experience, those veterans. But the big thing, like we explained the things for the Bengals on their side for the Super Bowl matchup. For the Rams, it's really comes down that D-line versus that O-line. That's a big one there. Can the Bengals overcome it? The Rams absolutely have to execute. Could it be like the Titans-Bengals game where the Titans did execute? They tied the record for sacks in a playoff game, but they still lost. The Bengals just still find a way. It's like on this game, they still find a way. They find a way to execute. That could be the difference there. Both those things could be the difference. It could be the Rams D-line is just too much for the Bengals offense line, and they have some explosive offense plays to go along with it. Or it could be that the Bengals are just much cleaner, smoother executing the big moments. So that's why it's going to be a heck of a game there. So I'm excited for it. Joe Burrow versus Matthew Stafford. Two pretty likable guys there at the quarterback position. Yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. I just gave you all my thoughts on these games. Yeah, another thing, the Chiefs ran the ball pretty well. I said, why didn't they go back to McKinnon? And I guess they were losing. They were trying, and they're moving the ball, I guess. Both teams ran fairly well. The Chiefs ran very well, actually. The other game, there's two teams. The Rams are starting to open up the run. 49ers, they are the run. And they couldn't run the ball, like 2.5 average for one and in that ballpark range for the other. In this game, they ran fairly well, but they were throwing the ball at the end. It's interesting games here. Bengals, Rams, 2 weeks away. We get a week off. We got the Senior Bowl next week and the Pro Bowl, but more excited for the Senior Bowl. That's coming up, so we excited about that. Obviously, our East-West Shrine's coming up actually first, but yeah, excited about the Super Bowl, excited about all the offseason content with the draft like we were just talking about. And we already have a bunch of free agency type videos up and definitely more to come. More to come this week for sure. Links to those, pin in the comments. You can just head over to our channel here and see those videos. We much appreciate you joining us for all that. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. Huge if you can do so. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.